Another day, another video, and another Philodendron verrucosum hybrid. This is Philodendron verrucosum Titanium, a hybrid of Philodendron verrucosum and Philodendron serpens. I received her in the mail 12 months ago and put her on a grow vertical moss pole straight away. And 12 months later, this is what she looks like. And in today's video, we're following the plant's journey over those 12 months, and then I'm going to address anything that I've learned about this plant. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another plant spotlight. A plant spotlight is where I put the spotlight on one specific plant, and today we're focusing on yet another Philodendron verrucosum hybrid, Philodendron Titanium. At the time of receiving this plant, I actually had no idea it even existed. My friend Tim from Grow Vertical sent me a little packet of goodies. There was an autumn queen, an obliqua, and this titanium in there. So a very successful day in my books. But this one really was the one that stands out to me because I'm an absolute sucker for anything verrucosum. Philodendron verrucosum has been one of my first plants and has ever since been my favorite plant of all time. I just absolutely love this plant, and it is used to make some really nice hybrids. For example, Philodendron Splendid, Philodendron Majestic, even though I'm a little cross with the Majestic at the moment. We've seen the verrucosum that I've done a full plant spotlight on recently, and now also a Philodendron Titanium. Before we give it back to Jan from 12 months ago, I just wanted to quickly show you the parent plants. Now this is not a hybrid that I made, right? Like I don't even know who made that hybrid. I don't think Tim made the hybrid himself either. Surely somewhere in the world somebody has made this hybrid, but I happen to have both of the species here as well. Ironically, the parents are much smaller than the actual hybrid now, but look, I have a huge verrucosum in my office, but I didn't want to bring it out here because every time I bring it out of the office, I rip a leaf or two, and it's growing so nicely right now, I wanted to keep that. But I have this teeny tiny propagation. I will actually put it in moss to propagate it. That is my preferred way, but I think I just wanted to show you the species so you can see all of the features. So verrucosum has these really intense neon green veining, right? And in between it is a red, that is the red from the back coming through. So it gives you this really crazy effect of lime green veining with these dark splotches in between, right? I'm a sucker for anything with a red back. That is always a feature in plants that really stands out to me, and this plant also has really cute hairy petioles as well as caterpillars eventually. This is Philodendron serpens. Don't have quite as much experience with the serpens. It's actually a newish addition, but well, the first thing that stands out to me is actually the red petioles with the lime green hair. I don't think hair is the official term, but you know what I mean. Whereas, by the way, the verrucosum had green petioles with green hair, right? So over here, the red petioles really stand out to me. I also really enjoy this pinkish back, but you can see that they are very glossy, hardy leaves, right? So there's no velvet in here, they're more leathery. Yeah, anyway, I've only grown this for a few months now. It's actually sizing up quite nicely. And you can see from a leaf shape perspective, it's still kind of heart-shaped, but not as round as a verrucosum is. And I can definitely see both parents being reflected in this hybrid over here. Let's really quickly take it back to Jan from 12 months ago, who first potted up this plant. Actually, before we're heading back into the past, present and future Jan has a little request. Could you please give this video a thumbs up and leave a nice comment down below? Engaging with my content is by far the best way for you guys to support me, so that the algorithm is spreading that video to more and more people. The more people that view my channel, the more likely I can continue operating this channel. Also, make sure to subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification. Thank you in advance, but let's keep going with the video. Philodendron verrucosum Titanium. Now it has beautiful red backs. It does have a little bit of sheen at the front, and it has nice hairy petioles. So all the things I love in a verrucosum, but I'm not 100% sure what, like, it looks definitely different to my regular verrucosum that I have, but I'm not too sure if this is like a hybrid or whatever. I've never heard of this plant before, but if there's anything with verrucosum parentage, I'm all for that. Now in true verrucosum fashion, it has a really shitty root system. But that's okay. Never stopped me before. With my trusted pins, I will pin this to the moss pole, and I'll obviously pin it to the moss pole so that the newest nodes are kind of making contact with it, so that the newest nodes can grow some nice roots into the pole. Pot goes all the way to the bottom of the pot, and then top it up with airwood mix. Now actually I might want to sprinkle a little bit of moss in here because these roots were very fine and used to probably a finer substrate than my chunky airwood mix. Embrace the mess. And that's it. I don't connect the pot and the pole or whatever. The airwood mix does all of that for me. Now the leaves look weird now, but don't worry, they will face towards the light. I just need to put it in a nice window. And I'll probably put this one in my office because I'm the most excited about this one because I love verrucosum. Welcome back to an update. It has been 7 months for this plant on this moss pole. I put it straight on that moss pole, didn't I? And it has very quickly grown into one of my favorite plants in my collection. All of the leaves you can see now should have grown in my care, and you can definitely see a very decent increase in leaf size. So whatever I'm doing right. And look at this newest leaf. Oh my god, is it variegated? This, my friends, is light damage. I put it in my IKEA cabinet over winter, and I was very much enjoying the IKEA cabinet quite clearly based on the increase in leaf size. But now that it's growing quite large and has quite large petioles, this leaf was just very close to the door, and I've got a grow light mounted on the door. So this was just getting a little bit too much light. So I have now moved it out of the IKEA cabinet, which is not a problem at all. You know, we're heading into spring, or we're in spring over here. So we've got decent temperatures and humidity outside at the moment. Actually, the humidity has been quite low recently. It's been going down to like 30%, then back up to 50, 60% depending on how long it's been in between rains. I haven't had a new leaf since I moved it out, but there is one unfurling right over here. Let me bring you a little bit closer so you can see this light discoloration. That is light damage. This is what it looks like without light damage, but you should be able to see a really beautiful sheen on these leaves. You can also see very beautiful red petioles with lime green hairy bits. Love it. Even on the caterpillar over here already. And the backsides are stunning. Absolutely gorgeous backsides. Love this plant. So I want to continue the success I'm having with this plant. And just judging by the newest leaf unfurling, I don't think a change in position is really going to impact this plant. But this newest node has nothing to attach to. I think I was just really short on moss when I put this plant on a pole. So I want to top up this pole with more moss so that this newest node can also root into the pole. Because, let me come closer again, you can probably see these tiny roots sticking out over here. I would love for these roots to grow into something. You guys know how I'm like a broken record about conditions set the potential, care realizes that potential. Well, this is the realizing the potential, right? Like, I obviously give it good enough conditions for it to grow, but I also want to realize all of the potential that are set with the conditions by giving the plant an opportunity to grow as large of a root system as possible, as quickly as possible. And if I give every single node the opportunity to grow a root system rather than just a few nodes down here, then that is me realizing potential. So I'll just stuff some moss in here. I often get asked how much moss. Now I think with the plastic back poles I'm a little more conservative with the amount of moss because it has better water retention as it is. But you're basically trying to find a compromise between it being so tight that there's no aeration, because roots, while loving moisture, they also love oxygen. So you want there to be aeration within the mix as well as within the pole. But at the same time, you also don't just want to sprinkle some moss in there, because moss is what retains moisture. The more moss you've got, the more moisture it will retain, the less work for you to keep it moist, right? If you just sprinkle a few flakes of moss in there, they're just gonna dry out pretty much instantly. And that issue is obviously amplified if you have an open moss pole with a larger surface area. Now this plant doesn't actually need it because it's kind of finding its way naturally towards the pole, but for example, sometimes plants want to go like off to one side of the pole and then running risk of outgrowing the pole. It's just a piece of wire that I shaped into a little U, and just to tell it, hey, when you attach here. So it's not so much for functionality, but more for aesthetics. Righty, I popped this back into my office where it's now just getting natural light from a south-facing window. Keep in mind I'm in the southern hemisphere, so it's the equivalent of north in the northern hemisphere. So no direct light, just bright indirect light. But given that the grow light previously was too much light, I'm just trying to go with a little less light and see how it goes. So let's just see what the newest leaf looks like, and I suppose that will tell me the story. So I will see you soon. Hello my friends. How good is it? I can do repots outside again. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. My titanium has reached the top of its moss pole, so I'm going to give it a bigger pot so it is a little bit more stable, and I'm going to give it an extension. Easy. Over here you can see some roots going in, so that's still making contact with the moss, which is good, but you can see it has quite large internodal spacing. So as soon as this leaf unfurls with the next caterpillar will already be kind of hovering mid-air. And I've noticed that a couple of these nodes, specifically these two over here, have not actually rooted into the pole at all anyway, so I really can't afford any more roots to not root into the pole. Now, to be honest, I don't know why that is. I don't know why it hasn't rooted into the pole well. Let me show you the roots maybe a little bit. See some roots here, but nothing crazy, right? So there must be some roots within the pole from these older nodes for sure that somehow keep this plant alive, because it is growing and it's increasing in leaf size, but it hasn't really shown all too much root growth. So, oh well, I suppose we'll find out. I'll pot this all the way to the bottom of the pot and the back of the pot, because, well, all of the leaves will face one way, so if I have it at the front, it's going to make it even more front heavy. At the back is the best to stop it from being top heavy. And let's top it up with airwood mix. Yeah, I haven't done anything differently with this plant than to any other plant, and this one seems to have issues rooting into the pole. I know that verrucosums in general don't have like the best root system. It's usually a little bit disappointing. So maybe that's the verrucosum parentage coming through. But yeah, with maturity, my verrucosum definitely started rooting into the pole a little bit better. So hopefully that just changes. I won't change my approach just yet, or I don't think I'm doing anything wrong. I think that's just how the plant likes to grow. I didn't need the larger pot because it needed more space for roots. I just gave it a larger pot because then it has a bigger base to stand on, and it should give it a little bit more stability. Now this is still in my south-facing window, and the best part about it is that as we are approaching summer, I am actually getting some light coming through from west. It's like a little nook, right? There's a little west window there as well. Well, it's not dead south, you know what I mean? So there's a little bit of afternoon sun coming through, so as we're getting closer and closer to summer, I'm actually getting more and more light coming through that south-facing window. I'm not planning on changing its position because I think that conditions are just now naturally getting better and better, but at a slow speed so that the plant can get used to it. It's not like one day it gets no direct sun and now it's getting blasted from a north-facing window. It's like gradual, you know, like every day it gets a little bit more direct sun in the afternoon. Just taking the grow vertical and stuffing it with some moss. Alright, I cut the top two cable ties off over here and over here, so I'm now going to overlap it. Now technically, and people have pointed out to me before, technically it makes more sense for me to put the new pole inside of the old pole. so that when I water it, no water can drip out between these two poles. I often don't do that because sometimes there's already roots at the top that I could now kind of harm. Oh shit, what have I done here? Oh my goodness, I didn't pay attention and I overlapped the mesh by too much. Oopsie, did I hurt you, plant? That's what happens when you don't pay attention for once. Sorry, what I was saying is, I've done this plenty of times before where I just put the extension on the outside. And no, I didn't have water coming through via this little joint over here. But technically, yes, I agree. It makes more sense to do it this way so that any water from the top is funneled into the bottom pole without chances of water escaping. But honestly, I don't think it really matters. This is a pretty tight connection. I don't really like leaving it that late because now I'm operating really close to this new sleeve, and I mean, I just showed you that things can easily go wrong and then you damage a beautiful new leaf. And I really don't want any more damaged leaves. This one already with the sun damage is pissing me off. I want some nice leaves. Now, these roots haven't actually fully penetrated into the pole, so I can use my little U thing and just say, hey, I want you in the middle. Perfect. Let me water in the pot and I'll put it back in the south-facing window. Need to find a new decorative planter that fits this now, and I'll see you soon. The first award is called the Best Newcomer. It goes to a plant that has joined the collection in 2024, and within a short amount of time it was able to have some decent impact already. And the winner is Philodendron verrucosum Titanium. It's a hybrid, it's a verrucosum and serpens cross, and I might be slightly biased because I really enjoy verrucosum, but I think this is such a stunning plant and it has grown really nice within just 1 year. It has great red backs and hairy petioles from the verrucosum parentage, and a super nice sheen to the leaves as well. So I think a very deserving winner of the Best Newcomer of 2024, and I'm looking forward to growing this plant in 2025 as well. And here we are. Thank you again, Tim, for sending me those plants. He knows I'm a sucker for anything verrucosum, so I really enjoyed that plant mail. Alrighty, let's quickly address what happened since the last update. The plant has actually grown quite nicely and has, I think with this leaf somewhat matured in size a little bit. Over here the leaves were kind of staying the same, but let's address the obvious one. These leaves look not that good. I mean, actually I think they look better than I thought they do, but I've had really bad spider mites on this plant. This plant is in my south-facing window and I look at it from the back. I think it actually looks worse from the back, the spider mite damage. Maybe not, I'm not too sure. I look at it from the back and honestly I didn't even notice the spider mites in the longest time. All of my plants in the office have had spider mites, so I could have figured that, you know, once they are even on the Milano, that they will definitely go for anything verrucosum hybridy. I don't know. I just feel like it's sitting in that south-facing window, and I'm kind of ignoring it. I was a bit late in getting on top of the spider mites. I have now tackled the issue. I started using killer mite, which has been really effective in getting rid of them. But the visual damage is done, right? So the leaves are just looking a little bit bleached, and also I have really bad discoloration around the edges. That I don't think is a result of the spider mites. I think that is my inconsistent watering. I have definitely let this pole dry out too much and then provided too much water to compensate for it and so on. It's one of these plants that wants to be provided with consistent moisture because it has quite a finicky root system, which we saw throughout the updates. It's not a really good rooter, right? Oh my god, that sounded bad, but you know what I mean. It doesn't root really well. That makes it sound as bad. It's having a hard time rooting. The roots are not that impressive. Anyway, it doesn't matter how I say it. I think the dirty-minded people will always come to the same conclusion. Anyway, the root system is fairly disappointing, as with all verrucosums and their hybrids. So it is quite finicky and quite vulnerable to changes in in watering. It could even be a little bit of over-fertilizing as well, potentially, but I don't think so, to be honest. I think this is just inconsistent watering. And obviously the spider mite damage wouldn't have helped. Let me bring you a bit closer. First of all, just to prove my point of really shitty rooting, look at this. Can you see these tiny little roots at the bottom of the pot there? That's literally the only roots that I can see within the pot. I can definitely see some more roots towards the back over here, but it's not see-through, so it's kind of, you just have to guess where they are. But you can see some darker discolorations. I mean, ultimately, there's got to be roots somewhere, right? It can't just grow out of thin air. Now let's have a look at these leaves. This leaf down here was the original one with the light damage, which has actually faded over time, but you can definitely see these yellow edges. I think over here, this sort of bleaching on the edge, that is very spider mitey. Like down here, it looks very much like spider mite damage, and then some watering damage as well. But you can still see that these leaves have a really nice sheen, right? This one is the first leaf that has grown post spider mite damage. You can see it's not super flat, it's a little bit crinkled. I think there was probably spider mite damage in development, but it wasn't causing visual damage to the actual color, I reckon. I don't know. It has a really nice sheen actually. It looks much brighter on the camera than it looks in real life. It's actually a bit darker than it appears on camera, to be honest. Of course, we always have the beautiful red backs. I think that is definitely a standout feature of this plant. And look how, oh, I just bent this petiole quite a bit, didn't I? And look how, I fully bent this irreversibly. Did I? Hang on, let's see if I can do it back. At least you can see the petiole really nice now. The petiole is red with little lime green hairs. The leaf shape is definitely a combination of both, right? You can definitely see the more elongation from the serpens, but it also has the more chubby, rounded, hard features like a verrucosum. And then obviously the backs are from the verrucosum, and the sheen is kind of like a combination of the leathery texture of the serpens and the velvet texture of the verrucosum. Most excitingly, it is pushing out this new leaf over here, and it looks so good. You can see how red the back is going to be, how lime green the veining is going to be. You can already see a bit of hair on the cataphil as well. So I am excited about this leaf because that is the first proper leaf post spider mite damage. So I'm expecting good things. Now this plant, oh my goodness, it really doesn't want to be. I'll hold it here. Now this plant is still in my south facing window. It moved there ever since it outgrew the IKEA cabinet, and I think it is the perfect window for it because it doesn't actually want that much light. So it just got bright indirect light at the beginning of spring, and then as we're going into summer, the light exposure has slowly changed, but not fast enough for the plant to have suffered from the increase in light exposure, but nice and gradually so the plant can get used to it. I don't really see a ginormous jump in leaf size as a result of the increased light exposure, which makes me think that it just doesn't really need the increased light exposure. And if I think about my experiences with any other verrucosum or verrucosum hybrid, then that's kind of confirmed. None of them really enjoys like super bright light. You know what? Once this plant has grown another 2 or 3 leaves and they all look nice, I think I will actually put this on my wall of aeroids instead of my Majestic, because I'm a bit pissed off at the Majestic, and I think the Majestic needs a fundamental reset and I need to try again. For now, I'm basically just looking at the back of this plant. You know, I love the red backs, but yeah, I'm definitely super distracted by these yellow discolorations, but that is also reality of plant care. Things go wrong. I didn't make my plants a priority over the months of December and January. I had life to live, right? I went on holidays, I had a friend visiting, traveled a little bit within Australia as well. My friend was visiting from Germany for 5 weeks. I wanted to spend time with him and show him Sydney, enjoy the summer, go to the beach and so on. So as a result of that, my plants were in front of mind all day, every day, and as a result of that, yeah, I didn't perfect or optimize the plant's growth at all times. Growing houseplants requires level of involvement from our end, right? Specifically if you grow these sort of finicky tropical house plants. While yes, we have great conditions in Sydney over the summer months, the success of my collection is still directly correlating to the effort and work I am able to put into this. And I didn't put that much effort into this plant over the last few months, and as a result of that I also need to dial down my expectations. Anyway, look, it's all just cosmetic damage. The plant seems to be happy. It seems to have established a decent root system, at least in the second half of the pole from what I can see in the back, and this looks to be potentially the biggest growth it has ever given me. So it is growing. I just needed to grow a little bit faster so I can compensate for the ugly leaves. So I've addressed the light situation, other conditions. It is actually in a high humidity environment. When I filmed that second or third update, that was definitely the lowest humidity I've had in this room all year round. It was at the beginning of spring and we had a few really hot but dry weeks. Subsequently thereafter it started raining like crazy again. We then actually had a really hot December that was also fairly dry with humidity dropping a little bit lower. Then we had crazy storms with flooding, and then the last 2 weeks are a little bit more consistent again with just a little bit of rain every day. A little bit of rain every day means that the humidity is usually quite high. I also live close to the coast. So on average, this plant, I would say, has been exposed to about 60 to 70% humidity, but it ranges from 30 to 90% depending on the weather, right? So not super consistent, which again is probably not the plant's preference, but the plant was able to handle it, right? Given the verrucosum parentage, the higher the humidity, the better for this plant. I also think that it actually enjoyed the beginning of spring more than it enjoyed summer. It doesn't enjoy the really hot temperatures. I can't air condition my office. There's no air conditioning in there. So it is definitely the warmest room of the house, specifically in the afternoon. Once it gets a bit of afternoon sun, it can easily go up to 28, 29 degrees in that room. I think it definitely prefer... Oh my God, sorry, I just looked over. And my baby is the cutest little baby on the couch. Look at this. Hello. Oh. Okay, sorry for the interruption. It definitely preferred the 22, 23, 24 in spring over the 27, 28, 29 in summer. Again, not a major surprise. Verrucosum is a high altitude, cool climate, cloud forest philodendron, so it likes high humidity and cooler temperatures. Alrighty, that's kind of the conditions that it grows in. Being the offspring of two tropical plants, it happens to like tropical conditions. But as always with hybrids, I do actually think that this plant is going to have an easier time compared to both of the parents. I mean, I've never managed to size up a verrucosum in their speed ever before. It definitely sizes up much faster than the verrucosum. My experiences with serpens are still really limited, so I can't speak about that. I also much prefer this internodal spacing over the internodal spacing of a verrucosum. While the internodal spacing is still somewhat large, it's not anywhere near as large as a verrucosum might have. So that's definitely a point for this hybrid. And sometimes the issue with verrucosum hybrids is that they tend to have super long petioles. And while this petiole is quite lengthy, I don't think it's the worst I've ever seen compared to like a majestic, for example. Plus, at least the petiole is nice and hairy. So the petiole is a feature rather than just an annoyance. I do think this could easily become one of my favorite verrucosum hybrids, and I'm actually really excited to see what it's gonna grow into over the next couple of months. Definitely think a plastic backed pole, it was a good decision for this one because it has really fine roots. You also saw in some of these updates I was struggling getting the plant to root into the moss pole. Now that happens very rarely for me, to be honest, and I didn't do anything differently with this plant than I normally do with my other plants. Roots usually seek moisture, so if you keep the moss pole moist, the roots will find their way into it. But plants also are most likely to grow new roots in their latest node. So if one of these roots, if one of these nodes down below hasn't rooted into it, it's quite unlikely for it to root in hindsight. You could put some cling wrap around it potentially that could help with the establishment of a root system, but I don't think I need to in this instance. The plant is still surviving, right? But given that the root system is quite disappointing, it seems to have a hard time rooting, and again, that's similar to most verrucosums and verrucosum hybrids. I think the plastic back pole is just keeping the moss a little more moist, right? I have actually let this dry out too much before, which makes me think that I think the bottom pole I did not fill with enough moss. I should have just packed the moss a little bit tighter. But you know, always smarter in hindsight, aren't we? I provide my regular nutrients, my GT Foliage Focus, in a weak dilution on a weekly basis, or with every watering, which is approximately every week. But of course, it is more frequent if it's 40% humidity and 28 degrees than when it's 20 degrees and 80% humidity, right? So of course, I don't have a watering schedule, but rather I assess the watering need for this plant and then act accordingly. I just squeeze the pole, and if the pole makes a crunchy sound, then the moss is dry and I go ahead and water. I always keep the moss pole as well as the pot moist. However, I don't really actively water the pot all too often. It's just the excess water from the pole that drains into the pot. Now, I have gotten so good at watering just the poles that I'm actually more likely to underwater than overwater, which is definitely something I need to work on. At least the pot, right? I water the pole without there being any excess. All right, and then I think the only other thing around the care aspect is, well, you know, now that I know that the spider mites also like it, I will keep a closer eye on it and be a little bit quicker to jump on that, because I think it's definitely a plant that is worth fighting the spider mites for, because these leaves are just so nice and rewarding. But look, that's all I really have to say about this plant. I mean, I probably said way more than I had to in the first place, but I think it is a really beautiful plant. If your taste is anything like mine, I think you will really enjoy this plant as well. It has some great features. Let me know in the comments down below. Have you heard of this hybrid before? Have you seen it grow very successfully? What are your experiences with it? And if you haven't heard about it before and this is the first time you see it, would you add this to your collection? Yes or no? Also, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notification so you're informed when I upload a new video. Apparently the YouTube algorithm can't be trusted and many of you have not been shown my latest videos. So that's a good way for you to make sure you're not missing out on them, and it is also extremely beneficial for me and the future of this channel. I very much appreciate your support, so thank you in advance. Happy growing, and till the next time.